The hybridity of live action and animation can be dated as far back as the very birth of animation in film itself, with J. Stuart Blackton's The Enchanted Drawing from 1900. Following this, from 1918 to 1929, Max Fleischer developed a series of shorts called Out of the Inkwell. These were not only early examples of live action and animation hybridity, but also the earliest examples of rotoscoping, a method of tracing over live action footage to develop a more convincing imitation of motion. The person to really take live action animation hybridity to the next level was Walt Disney through a series of short films made between the years of 1923 and 27 called the Alice Comedies. Unlike the previous examples, in which an animated character inhabits a mostly live action world, Disney did the exact reverse, by bringing the live action Alice into an animated world, a method Walt would continue to develop years later in succeeding decades, in films such as Song of the South, and most famously in 1964's Mary Poppins. Arguably, one of the most impressive blends of live action and animation came in the form of 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit by Robert Zemeckis. To this day, it remains a highly impressive film for its uses of special effects, adding a great level of detail to the small and subtle intricacies, such as shadowing, lighting, and how the characters interact with real-life objects and people. Zemeckis also presented the animators with the incredibly challenging task of animating characters in shots that involved a moving camera. From the turn of the century, up until the 1980s, there was a clear distinction between live action and animation as mediums. Even though technical advancements over time would prove to more convincingly blend the two together, animation was a fundamentally non-photorealistic medium, and so the hybridity of animation and live action would generally be an essential plotline within the film. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a prime example of this, establishing particular rules within the storytelling, disclosing a clear distinction between the live-action world and the entirely animated world of Toontown. Who Framed Roger Rabbit marks the end of an era in many ways. As the 80s drew to a close, advancements in computer technology was growing rapidly, and by the early 90s, films such as Terminator 2 Judgment Day and Jurassic Park would go on to show what was possible with CG. To quote director and screenwriter Andrew Todd, convincingly mixing animation and live footage was one of the more challenging tasks in filmmaking for decades, and as a result, it rarely appeared. Then, just as technology caught up with ambition in that realm with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, CGI came along almost immediately thereafter, dominating the industry and rendering cel animation passé. Even though examples such as Mary Poppins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit are what people most associate as live-action animation hybrids, the availability of CGI has spawned more hybrids than ever before. In fact, CGI has become a staple for major big-budget productions within the film industry, as absence has become increasingly uncommon. This new technical marvel sparked the beginning of photorealistic special effects in big-budget films, begging the question if both live-action and animation can really be considered separate entities in the same way as they used to be. One expects 2016's Elliot from Pete's Dragon to be animated, just as the original 1977 Elliot was, and regardless of the technical advancements made over time, the audience is well aware that he is merely a product of special effects. So, how does CG change how we see film as a medium? Well, CGI isn't always used in the most obvious of ways. CGI is arguably at its most impressive when it's implemented in situations that the audience don't expect. It can be used to make a small crowd of 50 people look like a crowd of 5,000 people. It can be used to enhance the set within a scene, or in some cases, even create an entire city from the ground up. CGI has now developed to the point where it is almost impossible to tell what is animated and what is live action, causing the viewer to second guess what they perceive as real in film. As computer graphics continue to innovate, it is now becoming increasingly possible to create an entirely CGI animated film in which motion captured actors inhabit a computer generated world, without the audience even being able to tell that it is in fact not a live action film. In conclusion, as animation was gradually being developed over the course of the 20th century, it became a recognised medium of its own, characterising itself as a unique form of film. But as CGI developed, animation soon caught up technologically, dominating the mainstream film industry to the point where we must now re-evaluate how we perceive film as a medium. The tables have turned. Perhaps animation should no longer be characterised as a form of film. Maybe film should instead be characterised as a form of animation.